Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Automated Analytics podcast. Today we're going to meet Mark Beavan, one of the strongest marketeers I've met and had the pleasure of working for twice now. He's a brilliant marketeer, and I'm sure you'll enjoy this episode. If you do, don't forget to like and subscribe. Today's podcast is all about getting to know Mark and understanding what solutions he solved by using our platform. So tell us, Mark, a little bit about yourself. I know you very well because I've known you for about 4 or 5 years, but let's let the listeners hear about you.
So originally started out in the world of PPC. So I worked for Phones for You back in 2008. So right at the start of the PPC journey, managing Yahoo, Bing, and Google. And then from there, I've moved into various senior marketing roles through telecoms, through utilities, e-commerce, done a bit of travel, and then more recently in private care.
Excellent stuff. So you call yourself like a seasoned marketing pro, but you've got a bit of a sales background too as well because your Phones for You experience.
Yeah, I suppose so. So yeah, if you work for a corporate organisation, you obviously get sales training. I think my previous role at Helping Hands helped me cut my cloth managing call centres and understanding how they work.
And why is it that marketing, what gets you up in the morning as a marketing director?
I suppose for me personally, it's all that constant improvement, Kaizen, I suppose. Those little things that you make, then little changes that you make that add up to a big goal. But I think more recently in my career, I spent nearly 5 years with Helping Hands at a domiciliary care provider.
Yep.
And I think it taught me that I really like working for organisations with purpose.
Yep.
So Helping Hands helped elderly people and people with disabilities and help them have care at home. So although, yes, we're a private organisation, we're here to ultimately grow and make money, it had a purpose, and there was ultimately positive stories coming out of that and positive things happening for humans.
Which is a great thing, and it's a great product to market. It's a service like domiciliary care.
Yep.
Now, what you haven't told us about is you outside of work, which a little birdie told me that you're a Birmingham City fan, Mark.
Unfortunately for my sins, but we are doing very well now.
Are you?
In League One. But yes, I am a Birmingham City fan.
So actually being an Aston Villa fan, do you know what the 21 team knock you out the cup? Did that actually happen this year?
Possibly. I do remember beating you, though, and then we went on to win the Carling Cup many years ago.
That's true.
At least we have a trophy.
That's very true. So exactly, you should have a trophy. I mean, how did you ever become a client of ours, me being an Aston Villa fan? I think I remember our first meeting when you actually said that Aston Villa was just a bus stop in Aston, I think, was your response to me. So that was good. Okay, so... And outside of work, I know you've got a passion for cars as well, and you recently got married.
Yeah, so spend time with my wife, go travelling. I love motor racing, F1, British touring cars. So I've got sports cars, much to my wife's anger when I purchased that. And outside of that, I do lots of sports, so cycling, scuba diving, that sort of stuff. And I'm actually chairman of a local scuba diving club.
Oh, brilliant!
In my spare time.
Excellent.
So we teach people how to dive and go on lots of trips.
Brilliant. Sounds fun. So bringing it back to work. So obviously there's a lot of talk in the industry about AI, and you were actually one of our pioneers of our AI platform. So as a marketing person, where have you seen the industry gone in terms of AI and its adoption of AI?
I think the everybody talks about AI as being this big scary thing, right? And then the GPTs come out and everyone starts using it for mundane tasks, all of that sort of stuff. And I think where it really starts solving problems for me is going, how can you take those really time-consuming tasks that you do and almost get the AI to do those for you, so that you get the insight that you would have got, but you get it quicker and on the fly. So that's where I think, for me, that's where it's added the most value. And I admit, openly big user of ChatGPT, always using it to polish stuff, use it to give me ideas, use it to give me challenges on, what do I think my finance person is going to say if I put this idea across, and you can create personas and stuff. So I use quite a few things.
Got you. And so when you approached us, it was primarily around marketing attribution.
Yes.
there's a large proportion of your sales for, as the fertility clinic actually come through the phone line, or the form fills that you generate, you're actually outbounding those form fills. Is that right?
Yeah. So TFP Fertility, I'll tell you a little bit about TFP. So
Yeah.
we are a fertility supplier for patients. We have been around for about 30 years, 30 years plus. We have 8 clinics in the UK. And we have a couple of clinics in Poland and a couple in the Netherlands as well. So we're across 3 countries. And we look after thousands and thousands of patients every single year, creating thousands and thousands of babies. So it's, it's a fantastic organisation doing really amazing things for people who are struggling to conceive. My role within that ultimately is to bring in new patients. So when I started back in January 2023, it was all about, January 2024. Start again. When I started back in 2024, the task was to, how do we get more patients through the door to book an appointment with us so we can hopefully help them. And part of that was, looking at the budget that we were spending, analysing the suppliers that we had, analysing all of the data we had available to us. And what was really profound was we had lots of data within the organisation, but actually we had very little sort of marketing attribution data. We weren't able to really go, that's the thing that's driving our customers. And what was really evident was that search is a huge part in the journey for our customers. So whether it be people searching right at the start of their journey, trying to understand why they might be struggling to conceive, or whether it be that they're trying to understand, different symptoms, or whether they're looking for a clinic or trying to understand what the process is. There is a lot of searching that goes on. It's quite a long journey. So first thing is going, right, how do we make sure we appear as much as possible for all of these people? But also we want to make sure we're putting it in front of the right people and not existing customers coming back who are just trying to call us for the service call, for example.
So you don't really want your AdWords campaign generating customer service calls. You want it generating new inquiries, basically.
Absolutely. So if you imagine when I joined there, we were spending X amount of money, we were getting X amount of calls in the call centre, and we're getting X amount of form fills. What I couldn't tell you was which call came from what and which form fill came from what. So I suppose the next challenge was going, how do we stitch together those two things, first of all, to go, how many calls and form fills are those campaigns delivering? And then the next stage was going, how do we measure the quality of those form fills and those phone calls so that we can go and optimize towards the ones that we want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I think the challenge we have with what I would call a form fill campaign, so a lead generation campaign or classic lead generation campaign, is, look, you're generating all these form fills, but how many of them are actually turning into sales? And unless you're measuring that outbound journey, which, right, I've got a form fill, I'm measuring the outbound call, all you've got really is data that tells you, right, I've had 100 form fills today. You don't know of those 100 form fills exactly which ones have turned into an inquiry, a sale, an appointment, and therefore tracking that back to the keyword and then obviously the G-click with AdWords. You just can't do it unless you're doing that measurement.
Well, that bit's reasonably straightforward. The bit that's not straightforward is understanding why that form converted better than another form, and why was it that outbound call worked better than that outbound call. And I suppose we're getting into traditions of the traditional call center management style stuff. Once you layer on AI tech, you can get it to analyze your outbound calls, understand types of language that's used when you do get a conversion. And it helps point the call center managers into the right place to go and have a look and listen, so that you can understand better what's working and what's not.
And I guess that the temperament, the tone of the person on a call, such as promoting basically IVF. You've got to have a certain pitch. You can't, it's not like booking an MOT or phoning someone up to close a car service. You've got to have empathy on that call, and I'm guessing you could lose some of that just by not showing empathy to that form fill.
And I'm confident that all of the agents within the call centre do show empathy on every single call. And I think the key is here, we get thousands of phone calls every week. And, I always say to my advisor, you remember each one of those calls are deeply personal to that person. So just because you're dealing with lots of calls, actually, that call is backed by probably quite a lot of anxiety, worry, excitement, various different emotions. So you need to treat that customer with the utmost respect.
Yeah, no, totally.
Really listen to them
Yep.
and hopefully help them to move on to the next stage, hopefully in the right direction.
So plugging that, if you like, that attribution gap of understanding, right, or what calls, what form fills, then what's happened to those form fills. Obviously, you've been using our product Call 360. How's it gone so far?
So I think this has been probably the most revolutionary thing that we've done since I've joined. So stitching the inbound call to our Google IDs allows us to know what page they were on, potentially what journey they were doing, what clinic they were looking at. Yeah, and we understand what they hit on the IDR, what number they hit on the recorded messaging system. And actually what we can do now is we can feed back what the outcome of the call was.
Yep.
So it's really clever. It essentially, the AI listens to the phone call, it extracts and turns that into into text. And then what it does is it analyzes that text, works out who said what, and then using the AI, it basically makes a guess on, we think the outcome of this call is this.
Yep.
Now, it takes a little bit of time to train it to do the right thing. So you're always going to have mistakes at first. So it's about human going in and going, that was a bit wrong, that was a bit wrong. But it's pretty good actually at learning reasonably quickly. Once you've got a bunch of data, it just sort of gets better and better. But the key here is now we're able to go, that keyword on that day on that page drove a phone call that actually was either a warm conversation about somebody wanting treatment, or a warm conversation about something somebody wanted to do, egg freezing, or a warm conversation about, or it was a booking. Yeah, it was. We took details and it was booked in and it was all agreed. Or it was this call actually was, as you do in every business, you get called, you're like, this wasn't even to my business. Was it a mistake call? Was it something about donation? Was it a customer service call? So we probably get 4 times as many customer service calls as we do sales calls.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that our marketing is focused on trying to bring new people through that journey rather than the people that we've already got in clinic who are going through treatment, because those people should just be able to pick up the phone and talk to us.
Because I'm guessing if you're just measuring the volume of calls that you're getting, your brand campaign might look like it's your most successful, but once you understand the contents of the call and actually understand that some of those brand campaign keywords were driving customer service calls, actually the cost per lead or new inquiry isn't so good.
Absolutely. I think what the key thing is here is you've got Call 360 AI and how we're allocating or defining what the outcome of those calls were. It's how you then feed that back in. And what you've got to remember is on the other side of the coin, you've got Google and all of its automated bidding and campaigns. You need to feed it with the best possible data. So this allows us to feed it with the best possible data and let it do its thing ultimately to get us more customers.
Yeah, because if you're not pushing in G-Click, so if your business relies on phone calls or has got more than 20% of its business coming from phone calls, if you're not pushing that back into Google as a G-Click, as a conversion, you're missing out on optimizing your Google Ads account by 20, 30, 40, 80%. We've got some clients that even have 80% of their sales come on the phone line.
Yes. And using this, essentially the only calls we were recording was click to call.
Yeah.
So, and the majority of those were click to calls were existing customers trying to get hold of the clinic to talk to them about something.
Got you. So in terms of your metrics, so in terms of your cost per lead and your other KPIs, cost per appointment, I'm guessing is one of your KPIs. What's Call 360 done to those?
So I think two things really. You've got in marketing, you have the dreaded, I suppose, diminishing returns curve, right? So you get to a certain spend and you just don't seem to be getting more. I think the targets that we were given, I simply had to be able to break through that. And we sort of, as we became more intelligent with our data, we were able to go, actually, let's spend another X amount, spend another 20%, spend another 30%. And we managed to over double what we're spending on our campaigns, actually keep the CPA. For when I talk CPA, I'm talking like quality conversion. So say like a quality form fill or a quality phone call.
Yep.
That has pretty much remained. It's either dropped or, it sort of goes up and down throughout the year, but it's either dropped or it's remained the same. So it's essentially allowed us to push that diminishing returns curve upwards so that we've been able to continue to drive volume without driving up the cost per
So what you've been able to do is prove your return on investment at your AdWords, and then use that data to go and get more budget, so you can then go and drive more quality leads, more quality phone calls into the business to hit your targets.
Absolutely. And I suppose this isn't all about search, because marketing is much more than search, right? So we've got organic search, we've got paid search, both of which we can track, really well with 360, which is great. So we know what we're getting on those. But actually, there's a lot of, we have to remember, there's a lot of people come through the IVF journey that aren't ready to make a phone call. So just because it hasn't converted doesn't mean we shouldn't be there. And actually, what we're now trying to do is become much more intelligent about going, okay, this type of search here is the type of search somebody's probably doing because they're learning and finding information. And this type of search is more that they're probably further down the funnel, and actually they're ready and they're selecting a clinic. That journey can be quite long. That can be 6 months or 12 months. But people selecting the clinic and deciding what they want to do. So it's not just about search. It's fundamentally about, well, let's understand one channel at a time. Let's understand it as best we possibly can and give it the right data so that it can optimize as best we can. And then you go on to the next thing, and you apply the same sort of principles to the next channel.
But being able to essentially, double your lead volume using Call 360, that's a pretty good headline, right?
I would hope so, yeah. I think we're doing all right. Yeah, we're doing pretty well.
Good. So where do you see the future of AI for marketing? So obviously you used it to solve an attribution gap that you had within your business. Where do you see AI helping you as a marketer moving forward?
I think I go back to what I said earlier. So the key here is, how do you take those annoying, mundane jobs that you have to do and automate them? Something else in the organization that we're trying to do it in a different team is really interesting. And what we're doing is trying to use AI to be able to predict what's going to happen. So when we are creating our forecasting, actually the AI is going, well, look, based on historics and based on all of this information, we think this is what next month's going to look like, on the next month, and actually being more using that sort of intelligence to be able to predict those things. It gets us away from that traditional world of, oh my God, we've got to go and do this year's budget, right? And, actually, I'd love to be in a world where actually this year's budget is, we go over to our AI and say, what does next year's budget look like? And actually, we then start prompting it with some stuff. Well, what if we spent a bit more? What if we did this? Like, that for me would be really, really helpful. And I suppose it'd be helpful for more than just marketeers, but essentially it's what every, investor and all that stuff they're looking for. They're looking, go, well, what if I invested a bit more? How much?
What would you think? Because that's what AI is. It's a prediction model.
Absolutely.
So it's good that you're using it, or thinking of using it in that way. Because I remember budgeting back in the old days, it's months worth of process. Whereas now, if you're using AI to budget, actually, it's probably more accurate because it's using a lot more live data rather than just finger in the air. Oh, what do I think I'm going to get from it?
And I think we are quite forward thinking as an organization, and are really thinking about, well, how can we use tools and AI to streamline our organization, but also just do those things that are really time consuming and because at the end of the day, a budget process is a really good example. It sucks up loads of time. Lots of senior individuals. If you can make that really, really slick, suddenly you've got, could have months of additional resource that are focused on growing the business, are not just on growing the budget model. So that's just one example, right? But there's lots and lots of examples out there. But ultimately, and my team are always finding different ways in which they can use AI to make their job quicker, whether it be helping to edit and create videos, whether it be sometimes using AI voices, to quickly be able to get a voiceover for something if we want to get something out really, really quickly. Often in marketing, an opportunity arises for you to hijack and do something really, really interesting as a brand. I think, previously it might have taken you a week or two to go out and film something and do something. With AI, you can turn stuff around in a couple of hours. And I think the more more businesses get smart to that, the more content we're going to see out there. And actually, the more entertaining everything's going to be, and
easier it is to produce and quicker.
Absolutely, and the more effective businesses can be ultimately.
So what interests me about you, Mark, is you were very much, I want to be a thought leader in my industry. I want to implement AI. That's what really struck me about you. Why did you want to pick that mantra? Why did you want to be a thought leader within your industry?
It was more that if we can, you only have a certain amount of resource when you get a job like, you're a marketing director, you sort of have a limit on how many heads you can put on seats and how much sort of hands you can do. So if you've got, you're aspiring to get to a certain place, you've got to be smart about how you do it, right? So if you can automate things, be smarter, then you can ultimately do more with less, if that makes sense.
Because their budgets are very tight. It's not like
it's the same in any it's not an unlimited pot of money. So I think, and marketing is always it's a cost center, right? So, and we're always the one that everybody looks at. When we need to save money, well, let's go to marketing. Well, actually, you want to almost flip that round and turn yourself into a value center, and using AI to streamline all of your processes, to make things happen quicker, to make all of your team more effective. All of those things put together. Suddenly, when that's presented, you're more a value center than you are a cost center. And suddenly then you feel like a much more valuable part of the business.
So what advice would you give to someone who's watching this podcast or listening to this podcast? What advice would you give them if they think about solving the attribution problem that you had?
There's loads of, there's tech out there that can solve it. You've got to, just come and talk to people, talk to peers that are, everybody's sort of trying things out. The one thing I'd say is don't be afraid to try it, because I think a lot of people I've spoken to are a bit like, oh, AI, I don't know if I want to, I want to bring that in my organization. Well, if you don't, your organization is going to get left behind, and ultimately somebody else is going to come in and do all the things that you're going to do in the future. Like it's here to stay. We've got to use it. I think the only other bit I would say is once you've implemented it, really don't go in with a view of, well, I know what it's going to give, I know the answer it's going to give me, because it's never what you think. Actually, suddenly, and the cool example is suddenly to go from being able to manually listen to 10, 15, 20 calls a week to being able to analyze 1,000 calls a week or 2,000 calls or 5,000 calls a week, the insight you get is completely different, and it's not what you're going to expect. Use that insight then to go, it's not just about solving problems to get more sales. This is also about providing people a really great experience. And I'm going to jump on one last example was we actually used the AI started to recognize there was a particular question or particular questions that our patients were asking. And actually what that's done is that is feeding our projects to go, okay, we need to be better at telling our customers these things or telling our patients these things. Preempting, they're going to phone us. Because actually those phone calls, that's because they're probably sat at home going, oh, I'm not really sure about this. Well, if we could have had that conversation at the beginning, or given them an information sheet or whatever, that person wouldn't have had to make that call and probably wouldn't have had that anxiety pre-making that call and had to wait and all of that sort of stuff. So this isn't just about sales or getting more customers or patients. This is about how do you provide an outstanding experience, and AI can help you do that.
And I guess that customer journey, because it's making sure that customer journey is as slick as it can be. So they become an inquiry. So there isn't a barrier or a block to them calling you or filling out a form, or they feel like during that customer journey that actually you're the brand that we want.
Hopefully. Yes.
Cool. And then one final question I'm going to ask you. Are Birmingham City going to get promoted this season?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, listen, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you very much. Next episode will be out in a week or two's time. Thanks very much for listening.